A lot of you have never been into a roundtable. A roundtable discussion is really for you to talk amongst yourself about the specific topic. So basically, I'm just going to open the floor, and we're going to, and I'm going to be discussing as well with you guys, but we just want to like talk about factional warfare and how we want it to improve, what we think sucks, what we could do to, just make it better. And I mean, people are just going to talk amongst ourselves, and I don't know if we want to pass the mic around to people. Usually these are in a smaller room, so this is the first huge roundtable I've been at. So does anybody want to start? He does. Okay, great.
Okay, so what is the E community think? Has CCP been successful in their implementation of factional warfare and what we wanted it to do?
Okay. We also we need somebody to take notes. We need a note taker, or else we're going to be Fanfest. Yes. That's okay.
Speaking as a Caldari, I can honestly say it's going to turn out exactly as planned. There is a question, of course, the Atlantic Federation has basically lost at this point, and shows no signs of pulling it back. In part because pilots don't want to get involved in the flexing, they just want shooting things. Just wondering if there are any plans on the table to make that a more viable strategy for winning the war.
Can I make a point to that? You want to? Yes, please. Okay. Well, there are several reasons why the Glenty did not get involved in plexing. There are several reasons why the Caldari did get involved in plexing. One of this is the reasons is that there's a disbalance between the rewards that the Caldari can get from plexing and the Glenty. The biggest reward for plexing currently is the standing boost that it gives. And at the moment, the Caldari can pull out 2.1 billion ISK to grind an alt through defensive plexing to 5.8 standing, and that's done quite fast. You can do that in like 3 or 5 days. I could do it in 2 days. So people are recycling characters to run defensive plexing, pull out the 2.1 billion ISK, and well, basically it's a gold mine for the Caldari. On the other hand, the Glenty can only pull out 18 million ISK through the Cosmos missions, because the Glenty got quite fewer Cosmos missions, which provides an incentive for the Caldari to go plexing, and there's no incentive for the Glenty to go plexing. That's basically the problem here. Another reason why the Glenty would not engage in plexing is because of the NPC imbalance. The Caldari got quite overpowered ECM and missiles, while the Glenty got short-range blaster ships. So the Caldari could just go in there with a cruiser or something, shoot them from a distance, never got harmed. Well, any Glenty that got in there got perma-jammed for like 3 minutes straight and could not even fire a shot. So, yeah, why should any of the Glenty go into those plexes only to get shot to pieces? Well, I use a trick to get some standing and to go in there anyway. People frequently criticize me for that, but it's basically the only valid tactic to get any of the Caldari plexes, because the higher end plexes just shoot you to pieces. Well, there's some exploits going on, but I'll get to that later.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Actually, to have it recorded, I guess we need to.
All right. Well, first, I'll just quickly add to what she added. By the way, I'm Checkers. You might have seen me around. Anyways, it's a disincentive to get standings when you're plexing. I'm in Galante Fatcore, because that just means my Caldari standing will go down, and in the long term, I will be banned from JITA. So it's not even a matter of incentive. But my main point I wanted to bring here is we're getting LP for missions. And these missions do nothing for SOV. If you think the militia is going to pay for something they want done, don't you think they would pay for something that would actually get them control of the system, if that is the point? Right now, the Fatcore missions, you can do them in 30 seconds compared to having to sit out for at least 10 minutes in the minor. You can choose where you want them. You actually get a lot of reward for them. I was making 30 million an hour in just a Rifter in level 1s. I know the pervs are up there and, making billions level 4s, more organized. why on earth are we not getting LP for something? Wouldn't you think the militia wants to pay for getting systems instead of just running around doing nothing? I think either give it for plexes, or even better, actually, if missions were a way to capture plexes, one, you wouldn't have to go around and sacrifice a high slot to scan for them. And secondly, you could try to focus plexing in a certain area where you wanted to capture, and it's just a nicer way to do it, it seems. Maybe make the missions a bit harder, but it's an easier way to open them up. And I just think pay for what you want done, and you want systems captured, pay for it.
I'm Evil Sins from Wolfie, who were, very high up in Gallente. We looked at Factional Warfare as red v blue. That's all we wanted. We weren't there for plexes. Sovereignty meant nothing to us. You could still dock, you could still go the system. Shooting rats was never something we wanted to do, especially as a couple of our guys went for it crazy with the Alliance 6, was it, to get in, to try and get the points, and then ended up we could never go into Kildare space ever again. I know the dream was maybe then that would force the market to maybe move out of JITA, but that didn't happen. So we are, at the moment, on hiatus in 0-0 because we just got bored. The guy from Kildare is saying, we're not getting any fights anymore. Stop bringing 60 guys to fight 5. If you want fair fights, have a fight where there's a chance you might lose. We used to live in Tama, your entry system. We would sit there for hours. We would only be able to gank 1 or 2 that you left behind when you didn't align or warp or something like that. What we don't have in Factional Warfare is an anti-blob device that you've got in 0-0, the bomb. It would be great to have something like that.
The plexes would be anti-blob.
Factional Warfare.
You weren't jammed when you had someone scrambled and winning and then ran away. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Factional Warfare was intended to not be about blobs, and they ended up being just that. Anyone got an idea why? Not just, oh, we don't want to lose, but there's no penalty for not being a blob.
It's because the plexes don't spawn properly, so you can just move from plex to plex with. One of the reasons is because of the plexing spawn mechanics, because right now it's better to just move a big fleet into a system, camp it, and then move from plex to plex instead of spreading out, because there are simply no plexes wherever you go. You must go to specific systems, and well, bringing more people to there is just more successful.
Okay, sure. So I'm going to contend that factional warfare is a success, and this is the reason. Because I believe that CCP developed it as a gateway to move people from high sec in the safe space to zero null sec. And so factional warfare, based on what Wolfie's doing, based on what my previous Core 22nd Black Rise defensive unit was doing, that people are getting tired of the shallow end of the pool, which is factional warfare, and starting to move out into the deep water. So I'm going to contend that it is a success. Does it still have development room? Heck yes, it does. But I don't think it should be an end state of the game, which is where some of us would like it to be. That's what I'm hearing.
I would probably second that. I participated in faction war in the earlier days of the deployment from the Caldari side. I enjoyed it, but at some point I think you realize that there's some limiting headroom there as far as, if someone declares war on a corp that you're part of, and someone decides to attack just those elements of the corp, and you can't go into Gallente space, or if you're Gallente, you can't go into Caldari space. So it kind of, for our corporation and alliance, it kind of hamstrung us. And so we decided to make the move out to 0-0. Blobs exist out there as well. So if you're trying to run away from a blob, good luck. But I think the NPC part of it, the Plex part of it, was never a factor for us. But I do argue that it is a success. It was casual PvP, red versus blue, and I think that's what most people want. If I wanted missions and plexes, I would look for those. But the consensual PvP part of it was the aspect that I think drew a lot of people in.
Can I ask you one question, though? So you say you think it was a success. How could we improve on that success? What do you
It would be hard to say. I think maybe some of the mechanics, as far as for maybe, I don't know if this would even be fair and balanced, but maybe for fleets that a faction war fleet, if you attack elements and you single out, if let's say I'm a pirate corp and I'm sitting in Tama, and a Caldari fleet jumps into Tama, there's two people out of 20. There's 2 people out of 20 that are in the fleet that are, have war declared against them. But if I attack them, the whole fleet should be able to retaliate. I'm not going to sit by and let a friend, get blown up. But the offshoot of that is now everybody has aggro and anybody can attack us. And it's just a game mechanic that can be used as a tool to divide. And so we just kind of got tired of having to play to a lot of those rules, and in 0-0, it's very cut and dry. If they're not blue, it's you. So.
Okay. If you could pass the mic to him.
I personally have come the other way with Faction Warfare in that I started out in 0-0 within about 3 weeks of starting to play EVE. And it's only recently that I actually came back to high security space, set up my own corporation, and joined Factional Warfare as a way of keeping the PvP spark alive. So there is that sense that you want Factional Warfare to be a rewarding experience in its own right, even if you do want it driving people out into the black. The idea there being then, here you have a corporation in HiSec, trundling an online team, doing whatever they do, making Tech 2 modules in my case. I want to be able to move out to nullsec again with that corporation eventually. But at the same time, that's a long-term goal. I'm going to be sitting where I am for a long time, building up money, building up the resources, gathering people to be involved with my corporation. And I want to be able to take them out there into factional warfare territory to engage people and have a good time. As it stands, great, yes, we can go out there, we can make a lot of money, we can continue to hold down the whole Galenti Federation. But the problem there is that what I really want is to give people a taste of having a solid war on their hands, so that when push comes to shove and we're out with some alliance and a hostile alliance is beating down the door, trying to kick us out, I can turn around and say, we know what this feels like. We have come up against a dedicated resistance, and I'm just not feeling that we have at the moment.
Any suggestions how we could change that? Well, besides the imbalances in the NPCs and the rewards.
The biggest thing I think would actually be to make actually engaging people in fights have an impact on the have an impact on occupancy in its own right, so that you're not just plexing or running missions to get there to get the sovereignty changing. Actually going out there and shooting at each other in terms of value of ship lost can have a small, maybe only an incremental influence, but you could still go out there and say, right, I've killed an FDU Megathron today for the loss of a single Blackbird. That's a damn good fight on our behalf. That's weakened their resources in the area. It may not have a huge impact, but it might have a small one.
It's an interesting idea, and I mean one that personally I'm not afraid of, but I think that especially when I saw the Caldari, a lot of their plexing was won because they had the logistics. They would come in a fight, even if they'd lost, they would kill half of us, and then they'd reform faster than we could and come back again. And that's a valid tactic, even if you don't win ISK and wars, that just, and especially in 0-0 to get the logistics help. I'd say I don't really like the idea for that idea, because logistics is a very valid way of fighting, even if you're putting more ISK out there in it. And finally, to say, if you want competition, come to Animalia. We've been based there for a while now, in LowSec.
Yeah, I run a small faction warfare corp for EVE University on my alt. I think faction warfare has been quite successful in getting new players to PvP. At least from what we've seen, they get out there in rifters and ruptures, and they do very well, and it's great fun. What I do see a problem with, which is also enforced by the comments I hear here, is that the more experienced players are lacking something in faction warfare. One of the real questions I have kind of for CCP is, what does occupancy actually do? Why do I care who occupies a certain system? It doesn't really impact my game if whatever regions are owned by the Caldari or the Gallente. I don't really care. It doesn't impact me. So why should anyone here really put effort into capturing or defending space? And of course, the other part is that also influences gameplay of the more experienced players is alliances in factional warfare. It has been rumored. It's hung around for a while. It still hasn't happened yet. Supposedly, it's not that hard. Why isn't it in the game yet? I don't know. I think it's a popular feature, but I may be wrong. Who's up? Who wants to respond?
Well, how about show of hands? How many people want alliances in Factional Warfare? Everybody does, or okay, it's a little bit. It's not.
Who doesn't want alliances in faction warfare?
But they're already in it. Some already do involve themselves.
You can technically, if you move all of your corps out of your alliance and into the
It's a
factions,
standing issue problem, of course,
but it has all sorts of logistical issues combined with it. Sorry?
We have a war decks are hard that way. We have a pseudo alliance in MENA, and it's very hard when we get war deck. We try to get rid of war deck back, but it's costly. It's hard to maintain that, and we don't like to be split up when one corp is decked and the rest. It's definitely a pain when you're in the same militia and you can't fight.
And what I noticed just now is, although it wasn't a majority who lifted their hand when you asked who supports the idea, there were even far fewer people who didn't, and apparently most people don't really care.
I'd like to clarify something on that. I don't necessarily want alliances in faction warfare, but seeing as the faction actually acts as an alliance to all intents and purposes, except in the case of a war deck against individual corps, which means that half the fleet is vulnerable, they can't ship into proper sized ships, they have to watch who they engage, the rest of us can't engage without going flashy. If the mechanic is that the faction warfare acts as an alliance, it should act fully as an alliance, and if anyone war decks the faction warfare corp, they should war deck the entire faction warfare faction. Maybe an increased cost to war decking and a corp or a alliance because it's a large number of corps. And the other thing, as Deirdre mentioned, there is no real reward for plexing. No.
If you can war deck one corp and get a war deck with the entire faction warfare, privateers will have all four faction warfare teams war deck.
Well, no, because I think the cost would be exorbitant. Yeah, but from our point of view, I mean, I know it's not an exploit to do so, but the involvement of Star Fraction and their capital heaviness and their titans in low sec is a great deterrent for people wanting to join faction warfare and take part in faction warfare, and we can't do anything about that. And, you want to take a fleet out, you want to get 60, 70 ships to go through Mimitar and have a good fight, and half of the fleet are in frigates because they can't fly battleships for fear of being Titan bridged, which I think is a total ruin of the mechanic. Titans shouldn't be in low sec. They shouldn't be there to drop 20 battleships on 2 cruisers and a frigate, which happened to us the other day. It's ridiculous. But going back to my original point, the victory points serve no real purpose to gain them. Now, if you gave LP for closing plexes as opposed to giving victory points, I think there'd be a lot more people doing it to get that LP, and especially with the new faction rewards coming in.
I think to reiterate the fact that you said university, I think, why do corporations and alliances in 0-0, why do 0-0 alliances fight each other? It's for territory, because the territory is worth something. In faction warfare, you can plex, you get loyalty points, you get stuff like that. But for the amount of rewards 0-0 alliances get for taking systems, vice faction warfare, it's bragging rights. Caldari kicked the crap out of everybody, but so what? They have Sov in a ton of systems. Who cares, right? There's no incentive for the Gallente to fight back. It's like, oh, we lost another system today. Who cares? So.
If you want an incentive for people to be able to if you want an incentive to draw people into factional warfare and to say there's a risk here, there's a reward, you could lose something, you could gain something, take it straight out of the pockets of the people who are in high-sec. Take it out in terms of you don't get as many loyalty points for mission runners working for the factional navy. So if the Caldari Navy suddenly lost all their systems, the mission runners might get... This is purely off the top of my head. It might be horribly crippling, I don't know. But you make it so that there's not quite... It's not... As you go further towards conquering every last system, make it harder to do so, but make the reward that little bit more sweet, because you are taking money directly out of the pockets of the guys over there and persuading them, look, we are losing money here, we are losing loyalty points because our militia isn't stepping up to the plate and doing its job. If we then get in, do the plexing, get this territory back, we're going to start making more money again. So you make it a personal incentive on a pilot-by-pilot basis to say, if we do something here about this factional warfare, we are going to get more money, we are going to get more loyalty points. Make it an indirect consequence, but make it a consequence.
Well, I think that's a brilliant idea. By implementing like a rewards multiplier, you know, if your faction controls more systems, then your rewards for mission running are even higher.
Except a lot of mission running run on the hub as is isn't the best mission running hub for Qadari anyway, so it's really not going to hurt that much. And in Delente Space I run for Qadari too, my standing balance. It's not as painful as a lot of the people who do go backward that I know still run Qadari missions because of the best.
I literally just made that up, so of course there's going to be problems.
Yeah, I know. The idea is interesting though. It's just
Somebody's finding a solution instead of just complaining about something.
Let's see.
About can I?
Oh, go ahead.
About incentives for flexing and for occupying space. He already covered the bandwagon effect. If one side is winning, why should I join the opposing side? I should already be running missions for the Caldari because the rewards are much greater for the Caldari already. So why is not everyone then jumping on the Caldari bandwagon because they already have all space, they already have the best missions? So why should I fight for the Galenti and not just cross sides? Because, well, I got Gita and all that other stuff. One other thing with providing loyalty points or other rewards for plexing is that people would just use a lot of alts like they are doing right now with the Throne Guards in the Caldari. Just dump a bunch of alts in those plexes every time it's going to capture and rake in the rewards. We already have that problem with the 2.1 billion that every Caldari alt can get out of plexing, and why would not just people, experienced players, use a whole army of alts to, well, basically influence factional warfare and rake a lot of money out of that. And it's also covered with the disbalance between defensive and offensive plexing. Currently, the running defensive plexing gives more standing than running offensive plexing. Well, defensive plexing can be done with any character because there's no opposition there. You can just do it with an alt with no skill points and a few warp core stabilizers fit to your ship so you can easily escape if anyone comes in. And offensive plexing, well, there's no incentive to do that at the moment, especially not for the Galenti side because they don't have the Cosmos offers to get a lot of stuff out of that.
How many pages of notes do you have?
There's something I want to talk about. I fly now with the Mercenary Alliance, and we recently had the 22nd join us, one of the bigger corps of factional warfare. And I'll say, as a PvPer who's been PvPing for many, many years, one of the things I'm glad for is factional warfare has really brought a lot more people into PvP. And some of these factional warfare guys have better discipline than people who've been PvPing for 3 years. And I'm glad that some of the corps are leaving factional warfare to come to us because it makes our alliances stronger. But I used to hunt all you factional warfare guys in LowSec, and it's a lot of fun. But one of the things that could make it better is, and I know that would make it easier for me as a pirate, but to get rid of station guns and gate guns in Blackrise, because you can't, if you're trying to defend your space, you can't exactly fight a pirate sometimes if the pirate doesn't attack you first. Yeah, and you can get screwed by gate guns because a lot of the factional warfare teams are running around in cruisers and frigates, and they will insta-pop to a station gun. And one of the biggest things is that you're going to lose more and more people to 0-0 because it's safer there and because it's no longer fun for people to hunt people in factional warfare anymore because there's just overwhelming odds. But you talk about blobs. Nobody really understands blobs until you get to 0.0, where a Titan bridge of 20 battleships is nothing compared to a Titan bridge of 300 battleships, or actually them just jumping the Titan on you. That's the difference. Yeah, or 3 to 4 Titans. The difference is that people don't. People are leaving factional warfare to come to 0.0.
Way in the back here.
It's been a valid point well made that, why should I fight for the Galenti? Why wouldn't I just go over to the Caldari instead when they're doing so much better and I could get the reward? The solution that occurs to me there is that if I want to faction Navy Dominix, I am not going to go to the Caldari for it. I personally think that faction ships should be a lot more prominent in the game. They should be a lot more common. Getting a frigate should be a fairly trivial task. You still have to work for it. It's still going to be a bit more effort than picking yourself up a Tech 2 or a Tech 1 off the market. But they should be, especially with the changes coming in Dominion, more prevalent, more common. You should be seeing them a lot more frequently in PvP. And if you're wanting a Navy Dominix or a Navy Scorpion or a Navy APOC or whatever, you're not going to go to the Caldari for it. You're going to go to the relevant faction. Fair point.
What I have to ask is that there comes. I don't know how much the Galenti at the moment, once being trounced by the beloved Caldari, how much missions they're doing and the result of the loyalty points from that. But there comes a time in which the cost of the Navy Scorpion and the Navy Dominix are going to be so out of line. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that isn't looking forward to a Navy Dominix. But I'm wondering, what's the ideas between kind of, leveling the field between the two, because it's really going to, up the cost between the different faction ships.
Well, I'm Steiner from the Vito Corporation, and I'm a real advocate of bringing the pirate factions into the factional warfare, so us pirates can finally get a piece of the fucking actions without the gate guns bothering us all the time. Anything from you?
It's entirely possible. The system was designed in such a way that we could do that. So I can't make any promises, for the very short term. But yeah, they promise now.
But if you're bringing pirate factions into the factional warfare, would they be directed at one faction? So the Empire faction would be fighting wars on two fronts. Would the pirate factions actually get to fight everybody?
Yeah, it's sort of all up in the air, I suppose. I mean, we would have to look at the pros and cons of both and make a decision on it.
Privateers will just join the rest as it'll all be over.
The one thing I'm thinking about is that if you're for Galente, for example, if you guys don't have the power anymore, then it should be available that you guys can get support from the game or support from your commanders to hire privateers, for example, to come out and fight for you for a month or so long, however it takes, to boost your morale, to get more people to come out and undock and more people to fight. Like, I'm totally agree. I'm not going to do a fucking Plex. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to shoot people. I don't want to sit in a Plex doing it. And if someone like Privateers comes along and comes on and is actually doing something to help my faction better, of course I'm going to come out and fight as well. But there's no use spinning ships. I know, get enough of that in 0-0.
I guess I'd like to ask everyone a question. How many here, by a show of hands, are interested in faction war for doing plexing and missioning? Anyone?
Nobody.
Anyone? Me. How many here are interested in faction war for the casual PvP side of it? Okay. That seems like everyone. But it seems like a lot of this discussion, and I mean, granted, I bowed out kind of early just because of some of the basic mechanics. It seems like a lot of the discussion is about plexing, and I understand that's a money generator and it's very important. But I think most of what draws people to the faction warfare is casual PvP. The one detractor that I saw pretty early on, that's been brought up, is that it trashes your factional status. Now, if that were removed, if that mechanic was removed, that Galinti police didn't care that I was in their space, that would be fine. You shouldn't have to carry that around as a weight. Galinti shouldn't have to worry about coming into Jita to be able to buy something. The bones to pick are with the actual faction. So the Caldari, people that are actually in the militia, that's their job to go hunt these people down. It shouldn't have to be NPCs and gate guns and things like that. But I don't know, that's just kind of the way I feel.
I've stole the mic. Sorry. Just all this. I mean, the Caldari. How come? Yes, the Caldari and the Galenti have the numbers, but the Amar have less numbers than the Minmarta, and yet they're holding their own. When the Galenti have, I think, about 50% less numbers than the Caldari, yet in PvP they held their own, if not better. I don't know if there's any pervs here. Any pervs? I mean, they're a 40-man corp that tame the system next to Old Man Start themselves. This talk about militia being an alliance, I don't buy that. It's a militia. If we were with, I don't know what a corporation you're with, but we were part of the Accord. Yeah. And the deal was, if you got war decked, we paid to war deck whoever war decked, and vice versa. That's what a militia is. It's not a free-for-all for the people that join just because they're in a two-man corp to suddenly be defended by Wolfie because they get war decked. Oh yeah, the alliance. Yeah, you're right about that. But even then, it's the choice of the alliance or Sami alliance to get that out there. But the fights were great. I mean, I'm in 0-0 now, and whoever said about 0-0 being, any good or better than that. I mean, I've had my eyes opened in the last 2 months to how crap some of the FCs in 0-0 are. They would get raped in low sec. Drop a bubble and start shooting. In low sec, you've got to think they can get away, get the tackle on the ships. A lot harder to get kills, and that's why I salute all the pirates that do what they do, because they're also fighting the gate guns. I'd love to see pirate factions come in. I think it would really unbalance it very quickly, because everybody would go Garista and Sancha. It would just go very quickly. But I would love to see kills being the difference. If you want sovereignty, on the top left-hand corner, it's because you've killed more of them than they've killed more of you. Not in noob ships, but balanced. I think we brought in some sort of point system that if you kill a battleship, it's worth so many points. I'd like to see that because, as we've seen, most of us want factional warfare to be undock, shoot, and dock when we're finished. And we can do it quick without having to go 30 jumps in 0-0 and end up, as you say, with a Titan appearing and going, oh, I've had enough of this. One last thing I would also like to add to this is go and make Motsu a spit-out station. A spit-out station, because Do Dixie's a spit-out, so pervs sit there waiting, somebody undocks, and whoa, suddenly 6 of them arrive on top and you can't get back. We sit in Motsu, I mean, we shut down Motsu every other night, sitting there, tanking the sentries, and they would just undock, go, oh, there's Wilfie, and dock again. It was really unfair.
One thing I'd like to put back to the whole point of plexing and actually having some value for it, but is it a possible consideration that we could make stations in a contested system be not dockable for members of the opposite militia? Sorry? No, I'm not talking about pirates. I'm talking in terms of having a value. So if you've taken hold of a Minmatar system and you lock it down and you make it an Amar system, Minmatars can't dock there after that. Yeah, but pirates aren't in faction warfare, so it makes a difference to them. Yeah, no, I'm saying in terms of members of the opposite militia cannot dock in a system that's owned by the other militia. And therefore the fights be more because people are meant to hide and dock all the time when you come in with the fleet. Well, then that's Eve, isn't it, really?
Sounds like a good plan.
Whoa. Okay, so going back to talking about anti-blob mechanics and things, I was just thinking, if you had to kill ships to change the occupancy, how about battleship worth 10 points? But if there's 10 people on the kill mail, you only get 1 point. So then you have to have only things, and if it's a big fleet fight, you just killed more ships, so you've offset it, maybe. And yeah. Stop me docking into Mars stations, please.
There's the question was asked earlier. When people get into factional warfare, are they getting in for the plexing, or are they getting in for the casual PvP? There was one third option there that wasn't covered. It's an important one: role playing. Does anybody here honestly claim that they joined the Galenti militia because it's financially superior? No, they joined it because they like being Galenti. They like democracy, freedom, the eagle, whatever. Yay. A lot of the Caldari militia, I will allow, probably got in because Jita, because Caldari Navy agents. Fair enough, but yeah. But my personal theory, I have no idea how accurate this is that if you look at the bulk of the other militias, what you're going to find is role players, and that's something that needs to be taken into account. Quite often isn't.
Outside of factional warfare, they have more role playing because, I mean, if you talk about the backstory behind the Galente and the Caldari, it's not easy to role play. But when you have the oppressive Amar and the freed Minmatar, there's so much there available. I mean, there's a reason why CVA exists. There's a reason why Ushar exists. You know, I mean, there's so much there as far as content. And I mean, more than half the chronicles are all related to the Amar Minmatar struggle. And I mean, I would love to. I'm not a big role player, but if there was a lot more content, I mean, I like the Galente. I am a Galente pilot. I love having a stupid high Galente standing for no reason other than I get shot at when I fly to Jita. But I mean, I'm no longer in factional warfare. Our corporation was in factional warfare for the first couple months, and then we were hoping for anti-blob stuff, and you know, like it's been discussed before, you'd get 15 to 20 Galente guys flying into Caldari space, and we'd get met with 60, 70 of them, and it's like, all right, well, that was fun, and we'd leave. But I think the more role playing would be fantastic. I mean, there's a reason why I like the Veto guys so much. You know, you're not required to be role playing, but it's highly encouraged. And I think more, and I guess it's not really faction warfare related, but more content for Galente Caldari stuff would be interesting. Aside from some rogue admiral crashing a mothership into a station.
I don't think we...
Not until it gets released.
I don't think we really need more role-playing because on the Galente side, at least in the beginning when I was there, I rarely saw any non-Galente ships in the fleets. Yes, we're all role-players by heart because we do pick a character, we do live into the role of that character when we play EVE. But especially in factional warfare, people tend to use their race ships, even though the other race may have something better. You hardly saw any Minmatar ships in the Amar fleets or Caldari ships in the Galente fleets because, hey, we're Galente.
This is the point I was making. If I want to name Domi, I go to the Fed Navy.
Yeah, but regarding the faction ships, if they really should be of any real use in factional warfare, they should be locked to the militia so that you cannot fly them without being in that militia. I know it's probably something that's hard to code, but if you really want to see the faction ships in faction warfare, hard code it. Exactly. That way we cannot sell a faction dummy for 5 billion ISK and hey, oh look, a fleet of Caldari in faction dummies. Oh shit. No. It'll be a fleet of Galente in faction dummies. Oh shit.
Suppose I want to be playing. Suppose you have a role player. He's plenty of shit, but he doesn't like the Federation. He's not the Caldari. You're limiting people's freedom of choice there. I don't think that's ever going to be able to fly.
Well, you limit yourself when you join the faction warfare.
See the last Alliance tournament, the one before the one here, I was captain of the Galente team. And we invited everybody to come and train, and we got quite a few people together, and we were coming up with great ideas, and we were trying, we're all there doing the maths and that. So said, can you guys go and fly Drakes? Because we want to test it against missile ships. Nobody. Not one person can fly a Drake or a Raven.
Who wants to?
We then got, I mean, the Navy Megas we got out in the first round just was awesome. But because we had no missiles, we got out Nightmares. Next time, we got Ramses handed to us because we had nobody that could fly anything else but turret ships. And I think that's what Factional Warfare is about. This is your stepping stone to getting up. So you learn how to fly a Glenty Zombie brilliantly, or a Navy Megatron, but then you move on to something else and you go to 0.
But even if you hardcode the faction ships, you can still use the normal version.
I mean, just now, if you say to anybody here, you're not going to get a Navy Dragon because you're not in militia, you get strong before you got out the door. But they're all looking forward to seeing these Navy ships because it'll be factory gangs, they'll be selling it to us. It's their benefit for getting it in as well. I don't think saying the only way you get this ship is to join the faction war.
Moving on from faction ships. Regarding roleplay and alliances and general roleplay in faction warfare, when the actual Empyrean Age came out, you got this huge elaborate storyline explaining how the militias came about. You had this huge roleplay push on it, and then you blocked all the roleplay alliances from this. Now, we accepted that at the time because, as was stated, you were looking at it and you would look into getting the alliances in there in the future. And I can understand the arguments behind why you wouldn't want some of the roleplay alliances in there. You've got some fairly organised groups. If CVA were to actively, fully commit to war, e.g., you're looking at a serious amount of people playing in the fight. And a number of arguments have been made as to how you can get the fighting to be more relevant in faction warfare as well. And you're looking at how you can get the alliances in there. I would say, if you're looking to get alliances in there, you happily put in the same standings requirements you've put in for corps to alliances at an alliance level, because the serious roleplay corps will do it regardless, and the serious roleplay alliances will make sure all their corps do it to get in there. Just one other point, by the way, regarding what you were saying about the whole Dominixes and roleplay and only flying Galent ships if you're Galent. That's really limiting in how you view roleplay. Taking Ashrakan as an example for roleplay, we fight as Mimitar, but we fight on the Mimitar side. Most people will look at us and say, we are Mimitar freedom fighters, but we are ostracized from the government. Even if for some reason the alliances were actually allowed into faction warfare, it's a very serious argument why UK wouldn't join, simply because at various points in time we've had a bounty on the head of the Mimitar Republic, and people still view us as Mimitar role players. It's worth noting there's much more diversity than just your Mimitar role players, you must fight for the Mimitar people. You might in each of the factions.
That's a really good point, and that's one of the big reasons that Kane had a hard time with the 4th District, had a hard time joining the Caldari faction the first, because they don't agree with Tiberius Heath and what he did. And so I do think there's a big place for RPG or for role playing in faction warfare and in EVE in general. But before we wrap the talk down, I really hope we get to hear something from these gentlemen in the black shirts about what they think about faction warfare and where it's going, and how do you see it as players and devs.
Great. Yeah. No, I mean, somebody said it earlier that our vision for it was really to get people into casual PvP as sort of a stepping stone onward, and it has been pretty successful in that, like some people mentioned. And I mean, we want to take it further and fix the imbalances with NPCs and the reward system, and I don't know, just continue moving it forward, but try to focus on the small scale PvP aspect of it.
Is there a team that's thinking about it? Do you have a scrum team or something that's saying this is where it is, this is where we want it to go?
Honestly, no, we don't have a specific scrum team on it right now. The scrum teams move from project to project as we change expansions, and they sort of focus on the specifics of like what's coming in the next expansion. And we had like one guy on one team sort of looking at it, and the thing he was focusing on was the rewards for LP and the changing the faction ships and stuff. But I mean, we've always got our eye on it, but for Dominion specifically, it wasn't a major focus of ours. But I mean, we do want to come back and iterate on Faction Warfare more because we think it's something that's pretty cool.
We understand. I want to hear from you is that it's an interesting thing to pursue further in the future, and that Dominion and Apocrypha and everything like that takes a lot of your resources in development.
Right.
But do you envision, as part of CCP, that this may move forward Faction Warfare? You're going to dedicate more to it in the future?
Yeah, we definitely will. I mean, there's like sort of a bullet point list of things that we want to improve, and plus, when we have these roundtables, we get all sorts of ideas, like the anti-blob mechanic from over here. So, I think there's more questions, and I think we only have about 5 or 10 minutes left before this thing's over. So.
Just to make a very big point regarding what you just said just now about how you look at it primarily as a way of getting people into small-scale PvP. Over the last 2 years, when you were bringing it in, there was an awful lot of discussion with the Mimitar, with the Amarian role players on a base level, with the Aurora teams, all of that before that shut down. You're looking at this now and you're saying that that isn't as important anymore to you guys, or are you saying that you're still looking at the role play aspect as well? Because what you just said there was that you're looking at small-scale PvP, and it kind of seems like you took the role play aspects, which were kind of very important to a lot of the alliances, and used them as a mechanic to get people into small game PvP, and left them out to dry a lot in the way that happened.
I mean, by no means do we want to leave the role players out to dry, and obviously this whole system is based around the role play aspect. But as far as just game mechanics, which is what I'm really focused on, I'm not the guy who's responsible for running the storyline forward. That's a whole other group of people that have other talks going on. But yeah, so I mean, really, the game mechanics and the getting meaningful, fun combat is really what I'm concerned with. So, pardon?
I think the point to make there is that, yeah, fine, by all means focus on the game mechanics because that's your job, but you have to factor in role-playing as part of the when you're thinking about how the game mechanics are going to play out, simply because EVE is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. It's right there in the acronym. People are going to role-play. You can't stop them. In fact, it's where a fair old chunk of the player base derive their satisfaction and fun from. You have to factor their probable motives in. You can't just look at it and say, there's going to be profit here, and risk here, and reward here, and all these other categories, because people who roleplay don't always do the logical thing that will drive them to follow the most personally productive path.
Can I speak for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. One of the other things that recently changed was well, there was also a problem with the Factional Warfare missions being, well, not very lucrative and very risky, and people losing a lot of standing over them because they failed the Faction Warfare missions. And CCP recently changed that by removing the penalties for failing or declining missions. And right now, it's once again a gold mine, and people pulling out hundreds of billions per week because people cherry-pick missions and constantly decline it and run them with old characters, not even in the militia. Well, is this going to be addressed? And what do you think?
Yeah, we're definitely going to address that.
Okay. Yeah. And what do you think is a proper reward for these missions? Because they were too low and no one were using these missions, and now they are much too high. But what do you people think is appropriate for these missions? And I see Jedra with his hand up all the time, so I'm going to give over the microphone.
I really just wanted the mic. Because I think we're about running out of time. Everyone's sort of leaving. I think the main thing that you guys, CCP, should take away from this, the general consensus I seem to see, is that there's a very big and undesired divide between what you do in faction warfare, what you prefer to do, which is PvP. Whether it is in a fleet or in a small gang, doesn't really matter, but everyone, or almost everyone here, does faction warfare simply for the PvP. But faction warfare as a system revolves around occupancy, which has absolutely nothing to do with PvP, and everything with some strange PvE mechanic, which nobody really seems to like. And I think it's that divide that is the main thing that you'll have to sort of fix.
So
think that's what you
LP
have
for
to
kills
take
and
away.
VP for kills is what you guys want to see it move towards. Okay. Yeah.
Plexing, though, is still very nice to split up the block. Plexing is still, I mean, it's gonna take, plexing is really a nice PvP mechanic apart from the rats because it splits fleets up into frigates, and especially for newer players, they can actually fight in frigates instead of against an RR battleship blob because they can go in there. A lot of fleets stay smaller when they're roaming to actually do plexes so they can get in. I still would say plexes are a very nice PvP mechanic. Although they could use some work, but definitely it's not like hate plexing, don't want to plex, but there's got a role, but it should be towards PvP for that.
Okay, are there any more questions? Because it's really time to end this thing. So I want to just wrap up by saying thank you guys all for coming, and this has been like a great insight into the whole, like, your minds, and see you around the show.